Hi guys, welcome to Haptic Audio. My name's Luke. I'm the senior sound designer and founder of Haptic Audio, and today I'm going to be walking you through a quick breakdown of how we created this short clip for a Cinematic Cars trailer. But I'll run you through the whole thing first and then we'll go through the breakdown. So I'll take you first through the Foley, and then I'll go through sound effects and the backgrounds and what I did to achieve certain sounds. So first of all, we have the cloth Foley. This was recorded using our cinematic movements library that is out on our website now, if you want to have a check out of that. But I'll essentially just solder these and you can see how they work with the video. So they're pretty full, got quite a bit of low end, which is nice, and they're very sort of fast paced, which is perfect for these sort of action shots. So next we'll go through the sound effects, and all these are using the cinematic movements library. So this is these, and they're all in their own food groups. So SFXA using the engines. These aren't from any of our libraries. I think this is from Pro Sound Effects or Boom Library. I'm not too sure, one of them. But we'll have a look at this first, and I'll take off the turbo so you can hear that in context later. Okay, so there's that, and then this is with the turbo on, which is just turbine by Boom Library as an instrument, and that's being modulated using the thrust parameter. Very quiet in the mix, but it's just to add a little bit of excitement and high end in this middle section, the sort of closer to the engine, the air intake of the car, so it just made more sense to do that. So next we have the mainly cinematic movements library, which is just, you know, the big booms, whooshes, sweeps and all that sort of stuff. So as you can see, I've dedicated certain sounds to the mono tracks and certain sounds to the stereo tracks. Mainly we've got the low end information in the mono tracks just to keep the stereo image just a bit more clean. And then we've also got the stereo tracks, which include the whooshes, the sort of some whoosh hits, which do have quite a bit of low end at times, and then just some rises at the end just to accentuate certain cuts. And for the next one, we have the this is sort of like environmental sounds, so they're not background sounds, they're just sounds like, you know, air whooshing by. These also use the cinematic movements library, which sounds like this. So I'll just quickly run through each individual sound so you can get a gist of what's going on. So I did an interesting thing here with the particles. So this is called the black hole. Because everything is moving right to left, I put a Haas effect just to delay the left channel here by quite a lot. I believe it's 39 milliseconds. So it's not unbearable to listen to. It doesn't sound like it's the left and right channels are disconnected, but it just gives it enough movement that it sounds like it's moving. A lot of this particle stuff already has a lot of movement in it anyway, so if I take this off, I bypass this, it already sounds like there's a lot of movement from left to right, but I kind of wanted the whole file audio to sort of seem like it's coming from the right first and then all moving to the left, even if it's moving in the stereo field anyway. So that kind of works, and it's a nice little effect. You can use it on the wind as well, but you kind of need some sort of stereo separation for these things to sort of work with the Haas effect, otherwise kind of just muddies up everything. It doesn't really work as well. Last thing in the sound effects is actually the gear shift, which is made up of a few sounds. So I'll go through all these, and I'll actually go through all of the whooshes and stuff in a second separately. First off, we have the sound effect at the very top, which is in mono, which is just sort of like an air burst riser thing. And then this is another sort of air burst that complements the actual gear shift itself, and again the top one to some degree. Kind of sharp, very in your face sort of sound, but it blends in pretty well. So the next one is the first gear change where he puts his hands on the gear. and that's cut a bit short just to give the second half a bit of space. So that's that one. This is just a lead-in sort of sound that we created, and this is actually for our cinematic cars library that'll be coming out soon. And then lastly is just sort of a knife scrape just to sort of accentuate more metallic parts. So that's that. And then back in context again. The last thing I believe is the backgrounds. There we go. Try it one more time. So what we have is we have this harbor background which kind of has this sort of, it's like a motor type deal in the background that's just panned left to right. The next one is pretty simple, it's just some. And then the next one is some wind. So let me go back to the sound effects here. So for mono, we have this, which is just part of a whoosh trimmed down. Next one, this is a sub boom. It's very knocky, very woody. Yeah, it's got this very growly sound which works in context very well with the shot of the car that comes in as well, so that was nice. Next one, I believe is another whoosh hit. Helps lead into the scene. This one here, which is just a cloth whoosh. We've got this one which is just a lead into the next scene. And the very last one here is very nice sound. I actually really like it because it's very zappy. It's just a whoosh hit, and here it's just another riser. Again, given the idea that the wheels are pretty close to the camera, so I kind of wanted to add that to the already pulsating sort of wind. So it just gives it a bit of movement, which is very nice. And then lastly, I think it's just I think that is all for in terms of the sounds we've used. So next I'll just get on to the techniques, panning, automation, everything like that. So in regards to FX and techniques I'm using, first thing I'm doing is I'm creating a sidechain with a compressor on this first channel for the engine. All this is doing is giving a bit of separation for the gear change. If I show you what this sounds like. And there's the sidechain. It kicks in when the gear change happens, and this is connected to our SFX E sub bus. That is where all the gear shifts sounds, the food group, is housed. The next thing is this engine sound here where it is distant. So if I give this a solo and show you what it sounds like. So all this is I'm sending this to two separate SFX buses, one being an external reverb, the second being an external delay. And if I show you exactly what these sound like, so this is just the reverb, and this is just the delay, and this is them both. So an important thing to note here is that these sends are in post fader mode. And so all that means is this signal is being sent to these buses currently at -10, and it is completely bypassing the fader on these channels. So effectively what we could do is you could ride your automation and do whatever you want with it, and that will only affect the dry signal on this channel, and it will not affect the reverb. So if I show you what that sounds like, if I move my automation back down to 0 and then play the sound, all you will hear are these scents. So effectively, this is a really good method to create distance, especially in dynamic scenes where you have things moving away or coming closer, and you just want to give a little bit of definition to your sounds, either by riding your dry signal here or riding your send, depending on what the scene calls for. And all we're doing is essentially bandpassing this signal just to give a little bit more distance in terms of what frequencies you're likely to hear at a distance. The last thing in terms of processing is what we're using on our stereo master. The only thing at the minute we're using on our stereo master is the L1 Ultra Maximizer. This is a Waves plugin, and we've just decreased the threshold by minus 1.5 dB, and anything that exceeds this threshold is getting limited just to keep our final stereo master in check in terms of loudness. And so that is all in terms of this project. I've shown you the sounds I've used, I've shown you techniques I've used specific to this redesign, and if there's anything else that you guys want me to go through in my next videos, let me know. I'm more than happy to show how we create our sound effects, what they're going to be used for in terms of projects, games, film, TV, any sort of media really. Let me know. Again, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.